Imagine this. It's 8 p.m. on Sunday, October 30th. Most of the kiddies are already in for the night and families are gathered sitting at home around their radios. Most of these sets are tuned into the CBS network.
Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmer's garden. From here, I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk and as long as I can see. More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit.
All of a sudden, a news bulletin comes on reporting that Martians are invading the Earth.
Wait a minute, something's happening. A humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from that mirror and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Oh, Lord, they're turning into flames. Now the whole field's caught up by the woods, the barns, the gas tanks of the automobiles spreading everywhere. It's coming this way now, about 20 yards to my right.
In moments, thousands, perhaps millions of listeners have taken to the street in terror and panic, only to find out they mistook an Orson Welles radio drama for a real news report.
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen. Out of character, to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be. The Mercury Theater's own radio version of dressing up in a sheet and jumping out of a bush and saying boo.
So in a previous episode, we talked about rage baiting by use of shock material, false information, disinformation and misinformation. So how does the War of the Worlds broadcast of 1938 echo this far into the future and be relevant to this day? Hysteria. Today we talk about hysteria by the use of false information, disinformation and misinformation. These things we see in events many times a year from local, national and international level. Think about this video the next time you see something on the news, something while browsing online or even a message or video on social media. Today, my lovely unicorns, we will talk about the dangers and how to avoid it. Let's dive in. Oh yeah! So once again, how does War of the Worlds broadcast of 1938 echo this far into the future and remain relevant to this day? Well, believe it or not, this event was pretty much a textbook example of how misinformation can drive hysteria, and not in the way you probably think.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
For example, did you know that in 1938, War of the Worlds broadcast wasn't as big of a deal as many have tried to make it out to be as the decades carried on? While Orson Welles, John Houseman and CBS Radio all took some backlash for the broadcast because of a higher than usual level of complaints lodged against it, the actual event is overstated to say the least. Firstly, it aired during the Mercury Theatre on air time slot, which was dedicated to sci-fi and fantasy radio dramas put on by the Mercury Theatre Company. Secondly, it was based on a 40-year-old H.G. Wells novel that was fairly well known by the majority of the Americans at the time. And thirdly, nationwide panic or mass hysteria as a result are exaggerations like what we see pretty much nowadays, well, every day, on Twitter or X for all the cool people out there. It was more like a few confused people called into the radio network, police and local officials to make sure this was a fictional broadcast and not a news bulletin. The reality of the situation is this was, of course, majorly blown out of proportion by media reports the following day. Headlines such as "Hysteria sweeps nation when radio reports mythical war" made the morning newspapers after the War of the World broadcast aired. leading people to believe the broadcast caused people to take to the streets and riot, causing injuries and death. People just accepted that some people in some American town were so convinced that Martians had invaded and rioted over it that the majority of the public outcry against the radio drama and Wells actually did not occur until days after, once people had time to speculate and report on false events. And the majority of the public's complaints against the show and production team have been addressed in the broadcast, revealing that most people making these complaints clearly had not tuned into the broadcast itself. This is where the real hysteria in the event itself takes place. For better or worse, this single episode not only launched a 23-year-old Orson Welles' career overnight, but showed us that how easy it was and is to work people into a panic over nothing. So at the end of this, the reality was the show tricked some people that should have known better, as did the rumors of people acting a fool because of the show. And they were left looking silly and mad when they tried to do something about it. In turn, this required people to choose between either saying, you know, what, my bad, or doubling down on the BS they fell for and push that as reality.
I'm, of course, surprised that the H.G. Wells classic, which is the original for many fantasies about invasions by mythical monsters from the planet Mars. I'm extremely surprised to learn that a story which has become familiar to children through the medium of comic strips and many succeeding novels and adventure stories should have had such an immediate and profound effect upon radio listeners.
In most situations, the effects don't usually go as far or last as long before the reality is eventually worked out. In the case of the 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast, they got lucky and managed to only trick some public officials, of course. It is pretty much a proverbial turd that finally stuck to the wall when thrown by the right person at the right time in just the right way. And with 84 years of retrospect, we can now see that the real hysteria it caused wasn't actually the result of the radio show, but it was the result of what people thought others may have done as a result of the radio show. Thanks to bad fate reporting and good old-fashioned conspiracy theories. Oh yeah!
That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian, it's Halloween.
So just like the rage baiting and shock material video I've done, hysteria of this kind is not in any way new to human psychology and sociology. In recent history, we have examples of this, like almost exactly this in 1992 with the mockumentary Ghostwatch, which aired on the BBC.
So welcome live this Halloween night to the first ever TV Ghostwatch.
It featured a live university broadcast of a real haunting as a ghost attacked two young girls in their room. The room looks very much like the bedroom of the 1977 haunting of the Hodgson family in London. Oh, who am I kidding? Of course the whole damn thing sounds like it because it was it, pretty much.
Tonight, television is going ghost hunting in an unprecedented scientific experiment where I hope to show you for the first time irrefutable proof that ghosts really do exist.
And they made it live on TV in 1992. Somehow.
Yeah. I believe in the devil, says Spook House Mother. Did you say that?
No, I didn't know.
Despite obvious hints that this could not possibly be real, such as a well-known actor in the show and post-production effects, some viewers bought into the real life broadcast claim because of the use of Michael Parkinson, a legit and well-known BBC interviewer at the time.
And I think we can see it right now. Let's roll the tape. There you are, up there on the screen. That's the tape you wanted, isn't it?
All right.
Now, this is the point where Emma Stapleford, our caller, says she could identify that dark, mysterious figure in the...
Fun side note that this has nothing to do with anything, but apparently Joanna Lumley was asked to be in Ghostwatch. That would have been interesting to watch, I'm certainly sure it would have been. And you know what, since we do like a bit of Joanna Lumley here, let's watch her a little bit in action, shall we? Roll the clip, Gary.
Time is like a stretched elastic band. You can't let it go or it'll flick back and take your eye out.
Due to public backlash and reports of panic, emotional damage, and one suicide as a result of the show, the BBC banned it from ever airing again. Of course, you can now download it and get a copy of it, you know? It's just how it is on the internet.
What was that?
Where are we going?
Just outside.
Where are we going?
Come on. Downstairs. Just outside. Pushing me myself, you know.
Banned doesn't mean banned forever, does it? And this means, just like the shock material video, we already have a lot of natural ability to avoid this, and generally only the rare cases may actually slip through. Even better, the kind of stuff that usually slips through on the personal scale is usually superficial for the majority of people. The danger lies in falling for one of the bigger ones and not being aware of how to spot them before acting on their own panic. Stories that effectively use second or third hand emotional manipulation to make you anxious or afraid about your conception of reality or welfare is one plain source. Stories that attempt to make you ignore the little voice in the back of your head going, you really should go fact check something, instead of panicking, right? And also stories that are loaded with nothing but scary exposition and no actual real world data. Even governments have their hand in this. They create fear and keep the masses at bay when they need to, like skewing data. Sometimes they will admit when they get things wrong, however, albeit rarely. People who are good at making stories can directly or indirectly cause hysteria by putting their own spin out there, like in many negative focused YouTube videos. Because unfortunately, the negative videos usually are the high performers. We have a negative bias, people. Would you look at that? And curiosity gets the better of us. A piece of paper and a pen. I think that would be some good material. So you're editing all of this part out because I just thought of an idea.
Have we lost the link completely?
No, it's nothing.
Oh, hang on, yeah, we're on.
Somebody, please tell me.
Nowadays, there are less people writing in the streets and more people clutching pearls, writing angry letters. Tweeting, that's the word. And on a little bit of a side note there, for people who don't know what letters are because you might be a little bit too young, it is a distinct form of communique involving ink, usually from a pen, and a piece of paper, or multiple pieces of paper if it's a damn strong worded letter. Like, I'm gonna start writing a damn strong worded letter right now, indeed.
Ghostwatch. My 11-year-old son was left shaking and physically sick after 10 minutes. Prior warning should have been given, so we had some idea of what was to come.
And the BBC should be locked up for such a prank. I guessed halfway through it was a hoax, but people do live in haunted houses. They're frightened enough without being ridiculed by Michael Parkinson.
Or? I have a helpline for people in distress, and I received over 300 calls. In fact, I thought Ghostwatch was brilliant, but it was introduced as a drama, and many of the people I helped did not understand that drama means fiction.
And thanks to Joe Soton of Staffordshire for that call, because it is, you could say, at the heart of the matter.
Most commonly still performed by elderly people and banks. Oh, and also official government business. Anyway, I digress. People become divided over a solution to a problem that never existed in the first place.
And for the record, there were on the night a total of 835 calls to the duty office. 382 viewers rang to say it was an insult to their intelligence. 275 thought it in poor taste. Another 62 just had a general moan. And 116 rang to say they thoroughly enjoyed it. No one congratulated Sarah Green on her acting, but perhaps they were too busy worrying if she'd gone missing forever in the cupboard under the stairs.
Susie.
You're Your mind's in hysteria. It's like the darkness is the light. Hysteria, am I scaring you tonight? Hysteria, ain't used to what you like. Hysteria, hysteria. Bum bum beata, bum bum beatum, bum 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 beata, bum bum beatum, bum.
I'm sorry to have to cut you off there. In fact, I've just heard that we've got to go back to Sarah. Sarah's got something important for us. Sarah?
And how can we avoid this? Well, I'm glad you asked, or at least my script hopes you asked. This is actually simple in theory. Don't allow yourself to be emotionally manipulated by reports. Don't ignore the voice or feeling inside, and just go fact check it for yourself. Don't just listen to the exposition, go look for the solid data to back it up. And in reality, we are seeing this becoming more difficult to do. While we are generally good at spotting the fakes, there are people out there waiting to catch those who are still unaware. If we do not use critical thinking, if we don't stay on top of being self-aware, particularly after a long day and we're tired, it becomes far easier to fall victim to, especially keeping up to date with some of the new tricks and scams, from emails to texts to clicking on links. Not every email will be as easy to identify, like the Nigerian prince leaving us vast wealth, the bank messaging about suspicious activity on the account. Your friend needs a vote for a contest on Instagram, so please vote by clicking on this link. Practice caution with every message. That's the point. And hence the reason a population of people not sure if their nation will be at war or peace much longer fell for something like the War of the Worlds hoax at the time. Because remember, they were between wars, World War I and World War II. They were just waiting for it.
We take you now to the Meridian Room in the Hotel Park Plaza in downtown New York, where you will be entertained by the music of Raymond Raquello and his orchestra.
And people were already at their limit, and it caused a public lapse in judgment. This, sadly, is how our world is still today. People are at their limit for many things, and all it takes is the right match to spark the fire. And this is also why the largest demographic for this kind of false information, disinformation, or misinformation today are usually the elderly and people who already buy into conspiracy theories. Not that all conspiracy theories are incorrect, mind you. In saying all that, practice some of what was said previously. The next time you see or hear anything, usually go with your intuition, that gut feeling. Usually when something doesn't feel or sound right, it's because it may not actually be. And as technology continues to advance, particularly with the sharp use in AI, we need to be even more focused on our ability to critically think and question if what we just saw or heard is even real. So thank you for joining me today, my lovely unicorns. Let me know what you think of today's episode down below, and if you think technology is making it harder to spot a scam or fake. I've been your friend Jay. If you missed our shock material video, or if you want to see more, stay tuned. It's up next. Take care. I'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time.